What's up, guys? We are live here at Radio Row at the Mandalay Bay here with Jim Wyatt. We're going to talk Titans over here. So, Sammy, start us up.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Talking Titans.
Ladies and gentlemen, 94 yards. Touchdown, Titans. He is the baddest man in the NFL, and he just took her to the house.
The sickest Tennessee Titans podcast.
Sick!
It's gonna be sick.
All right, guys, welcome back to Radio Row here. Like I said, we are live with Jim Wyatt, the man himself. He is a returning guest, been on the show now 3 times.
Okay.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. A little different scenario here. We're live. I don't have Sal and Vinny, so shout out Sal and Vinny back home in Jersey. We appreciate you guys. Maybe next year you guys will be here, but let's tackle it, Jim, right away. There was reports out earlier, with Mike Vrabel not being the head coach anymore, that GMs, Diana Rossini came out and said that Mike Vrabel is a big human being, and general managers and owners are afraid of him at the combine, during interviews. How true is that?
Well, I can confirm he's a big human being.
Yeah,
there's no question about that. He's a big man. Does that impact his opportunity to get a job? I don't think so. I mean, I know Diana Rossini. I like Diana Rossini. I can't imagine that's maybe the word choice there leads people down a direction that maybe is not the way I think it is. Like Mike Vrabel is an influence, and he wants to do things a certain way, and he is, he is a strong personality. But does his size intimidate people to the point where they wouldn't want to hire him? I don't believe that. Like Dan Campbell is bigger than Mike Vrabel, and he seems to be doing pretty well. And Mike Vrabel did well as a head coach until a certain point where things kind of got off track. The team was not having success or other factors that led to his dismissal. Mike Vrabel didn't get a job because he's a big man. He didn't get a job just because I think the NFL is changing and this hiring cycle was looking for something different. I think he's going to be a head coach again, and I don't think he needs to lose 50 or 60 pounds to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, just like you hear reports go on and on with the Wesley Woodyard, then you hear Taylor Lewan and Will Compton, and you have other guys in the NFL, ex-teammates and players of his saying, Vrabel's kind of a jerk. That 2019 run when they were in the playoffs, when Wesley Woodyard came on Ramon Williams and Kayla, he said that, we didn't necessarily want to win because we wanted to build up his ego. To me, as a fan, when you're sitting back out there and you're in there in the facility, how do you take that as a fan's perspective that the players possibly didn't want to win for him in 2019? Can you really see that happen?
No, I mean, I talked to Wesley at the Pro Bowl last week in Orlando for a while, and obviously he said what he said, and but the team was winning. I mean, there's no question about that. I think and during the course of that interview, I know the direction that thing went, and it was maybe a funny line at the time, but the players were playing to win.
Yeah.
And there's no question about that. Now, were there some personality conflicts, or were there some people that maybe didn't buy into Mike Vrabel as much as other guys? Probably so, but that's the same with whether it's Jeff Fisher or whether it was Mike Munchak or whether it was Ken Wisenhunt or Mike Mularkey or Mike Vrabel and now Brian Callahan. You're going to have it's a team of 53 players and 16 more guys in the practice squad. Not everybody's going to see things the same way, and when you lose 18 out of 24 games, and when you finish 7-10 and 6-11, and then you're going to have a little dissension in the ranks. And some people love Vrabel, some people maybe tolerated Mike Vrabel, and you don't have these problems though when you're going to AFC Championship games and winning Super Bowls. And of course, the Titans not being able to do that, and now we're talking about a coaching change, and we're talking about why the coaching change happened.
Yeah. Now we're closing the door on the Mike Vrabel situation. We're moving on to a new horizon with Brian Callahan now. What do you see? How do you see him evolving this offense now? Because it is an offensive-driven league. And Mike Vrabel was more of a defensive kind of guy. He was, ground and pound with the run, play defense. And, if we scored 17 points, where it felt like forever, for the last 2-3 years, we've been scoring 17 points. Kind of got old as fans, probably for you guys too as reporters. How do you see Brian Callahan, his style of play moving forward for the offense?
Well, I think it's going to look different. I mean, I go back to the Eddie George days, obviously, and watch this team build, try to establish the run. Whether it's Eddie George running football or whether it was Chris Johnson running the football, whether it's now Derrick Henry running football, throw Chris Brown in there, Antoine Smith, whoever the running back is you want to talk about. That's always kind of been a part of the Titans' identity. And they're not going to completely get away from the run. I think it's a new day, new direction. I think you've got a young quarterback in Will Levis that you can build around and open the offense up a little bit more for. I think the days of just trying to wear teams down physically and winning in the fourth quarter and winning on defense, I think, I won't say those days are gone, but because you're always going to have a fraction of that incorporated in what you're trying to do, but it's going to be a different look on offense.
Yeah.
And it's a new day for the Tennessee Titans, and it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, Brian Callahan have to implement his offense. Him and Nick Holtz, new offensive coordinator, and got to get players up to speed. I'm sure the personnel is going to look different, and so it may not look great right out of the gate. I think it's going to take some
adjustment
time.
periods. Yeah.
But I do think you're going to see the offense transform and be more exciting, hopefully, than it has been.
Yeah, we definitely hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, you touched on the Eddie George era. It felt like forever for Titan fans, too. We went from a generational back with Eddie George, went for a generational back in Chris Johnson with the speed, and now we have, obviously, Eric Dickerson type back and Derrick Henry, who's an impending free agent. Tajay Spears now comes into play where he is the typical prototype NFL running back in today's NFL. Now, you interviewed Peyton Manning. You said that Brian Callahan, not you, Peyton Manning said Brian Callahan would love to actually coach Derrick Henry. Will that happen? I don't know. In your profession with the team, do you think they would sign him to a 2-year deal just to complement Tajay Spears in the run game as well?
Well, it's just too early to know.
Yeah.
A lot of things are going to happen between now and the time free agency starts on mid-March, and a lot of that's going to depend on what other teams think about Derrick Henry and what they potentially would be willing to offer him. I think what Peyton was saying is that Brian Callahan would love a guy with a work ethic and a skill set that Derrick Henry has, a pro's pro who is going to demand excellence from everybody around him. I mean, that's a tone setter, that's a leader, that's a locker room builder, and so things will look different without Derrick Henry in Nashville for a number of reasons. But what's changed about the NFL now? And of course, the franchise tag comes long before free agency starts. Yeah. I don't know what the Titans are going to do there. That's a big number, and I'm sure there'll be some conversations with the Titans and Derrick's side just to kind of gauge what he has in mind, and I'm sure Derrick's representation will have a pretty good idea of what the market might look like for him. So when you start getting some answer to those questions, then you start having a more realistic idea of whether he can come back or not. I'm certainly embracing for the possibility of Derrick Henry not being back, just because I think you have to do that. And I'll miss Derrick Henry because he's been such a great guy to cover. If he comes back, great. If not, I wish him the best, because he deserves to win a ring and deserves to be rewarded for everything he's done for the team and his career.
Just you putting that in perspective and just really thinking about that in my head of Derrick Henry possibly playing for another team is mind-boggling to me, because we never had that guy. We shipped Eddie George out. We never had that guy retire, a Tennessee Titan, and for him to leave, and God forbid he goes to the Ravens, it's going to be like a gut punch to us Titan fans, because Mason went, McNair went. If he does go, let him go to an NFC team, because if we got to play him, or we got to see him in the purple and black, or even the Bills from that nature, because he was on Bussin' with the Boys and he said it was very, very close. I don't know if you knew if it was close at that time, but just hearing that, I kind of assumed like the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry thing, for that playoff run, it was pretty scary in my opinion. So just moving forward now with the coordinators, with Nick Foles and Denard Wilson. You just touch on a little bit of that, what their style play is, because I know Brian Callahan is going to be calling the plays, just as Zach Taylor did in Cincinnati, where Brian Callahan was the play sheet guy. He was, the one that was calling, giving him plays in advance. So you see Foles filling his role, and now Brian Callahan obviously filling Zach Taylor's role with the play calling. And I think, when he had, what was the guy's name, Sudfeld from Miami? The running backs coach that we also see. To me, when he was looking for an offensive coordinator, I even tweeted it too. He wanted to have somebody comfortable with him. He grew up with Foles,
Right.
with De La Salle, all the way up through the Raiders, the Broncos, and now obviously here. Now they went their separate ways, and now they're connecting again. So just have that comfortability as like a best friend. I think that was huge for the offensive play caller. But how do you see him, working with Brian Callahan?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I think the dynamics that Brian Callahan worked with Zach Taylor in Cincinnati will probably mirror what happens in Tennessee with Colts coming in. Yeah, I talked to Evan Ingram at the Pro Bowl, the Jaguars Pro Bowl tight end, about Nick Colts. I had some raving things to say about him and how much he helped him in his career and how innovative and how thoughtful he is during the course of the week and getting them ready to play. And I think you'll see Nick Holtz and Brian Callahan kind of working in tandem to get ready for Sundays, put the game plan together, and then obviously Brian Callahan's going to be calling the plays for the first time. As far as Denard Wilson goes, I talked to Roquan Smith, I talked to Patrick Queen, I talked to Kyle Hamilton of the Ravens about him at the Pro Bowl, and they described a guy who has kind of been building toward this moment where he got to run his first defense. Very involved in the game plan and what they do on a regular basis. They give him a lot of credit for how things were on the back end, for them not giving up a lot of big plays. We don't know what the personnel is going to look like on either side of the ball yet. Like, there going to be changes. I mean, we talked about the uncertainty surrounding Derrick Henry, but the Titans have some other question marks at other key positions. You got the draft coming up. You got free agency coming up. You've got an offensive line that's going to be reshaped. On the defensive side of the ball, a lot of question marks. Players like their own guys. And so a lot to be determined. But certainly I feel like the Titans got two good coordinators who are in demand at other places. And now I'm anxious to see them work.
Yeah, like when I heard Denard Wilson say that this was the place that he wanted to be, it just gives like fans like myself and others like huge hopes for this team and for the defense again, because we have really good defense for a long time under Mike Vrabel as well. It's just now the offense needs to take that step now with Brian Callahan, evolving this offense in today's NFL. So speaking of free agencies and everything coming up now, like you just mentioned, if you had Denard Wilson is a great defensive backs coach. Darius Slay, I seen a report that, he was one of the best, that he led, the league in past defenses on multiple teams. With impending free agents now, we haven't had that stud cornerback since Cortland Finnegan. Do you see us going after Snead in free agency right away? Because I know there's a lot of holes to be filled on the offensive line, but to me, we talked about this, me, Sal, and Vinny, on the last podcast. For us, you're going to either give T. Higgins a blank check, which I highly doubt because I think they're going to franchise tag him. So what's the next best thing? Because there's not a lot of guys out there in the free agent world that's going to be a game-changing left tackle, in my opinion. I don't know about your opinion yet. But in my opinion, if we're not going to go there and we possibly go left tackle with 7, I think we give Snead the blank check at cornerback to solidify the back end of our defense.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I got to be careful talking about specific players since I work for the team and they get me on tampering. I can always reminded you don't talk about other teams' players until they're actually
available.
Free agents. So
March 14th.
And the reality is we don't know who's going to be available because, as you mentioned, teams like to keep their best players. So you either do that with a franchise tag, transition tag. You either do it by renegotiating a contract, give a guy an extension. So what looks great here on February the 7th, or I don't know what day this is running, February 7th.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
What looks great now may look different a month from now because guys may be locked up. Guys may have the tag put on them. I do think people ask about the draft all the time and who the Titans going to pick. I think that's way too premature for that, too, because you can't really say what's happening in the draft until you see what unfolds in free agency.
Yeah.
If you go out and sign a big left tackle, if Frank Carlton disagrees with you and thinks there's a great left tackle in free agency that they signed, do you go and draft a guy there? Probably not. And we don't know for sure, and I'm not talking about the offensive line, but other positions on this team still to be determined about who's coming back, who they're going to, who the team could potentially release. So we won't really know true holes and needs until probably a month, 5 weeks from now.
It's definitely getting to that point. It's definitely getting exciting. It's like Christmas morning for not even Titans fans, every NFL fan around March 14th when you got the tampering period, you got the free agency period, just to see how the team is going to go into the OTAs and go into the training camp. But what does Jim Wyatt do in Vegas right now?
Somebody says it's been raining outside last couple of days, and I wouldn't know because I've spent most of my time in here.
Yeah.
Like I got here, I was in Orlando for the Pro Bowl for a couple of days. You mentioned I talked to Peyton Manning out there, and I talked to Derrick out there, and talked to Jamar Chase and Brian Callahan there. I talked to Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton and Evan Ingram, and then I came here on Sunday, just kind of getting the lay of the land, and now it's been wall to wall. I know in here is crazy.
Absolutely insane. Just looking around at everything over here, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah. So I spent all day Monday kind of working in here. Then they had the opening night at Allegiant Stadium where probably talked to 20, 25 people that night. Yesterday, a flurry of activity. And then things are really starting to pick up in here. There's still team availability in here, throughout the rest of the week. There are certain days you have access to talk to whether CBS talent or other analysts that can be found walking through here. We're hoping for some Titans to come rolling through here at some point. There's always different events going on, so it's you just got to keep your head on the swivel.
Yeah,
and,
you don't know who you're going to run into over here. You see everybody, man.
Yeah, so
it's crazy.
So I'm just trying to. I try to find Titans angles and try to. Sometimes people say, "Well, what are you doing at the Super Bowl? The Titans aren't in it." But believe me, there's always something to talk about, as you know. And especially that's the case when you have a new head coach and a lot of changes because people always willing to give you their opinions.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of opinions, you mentioned CBS. I saw Chris Sims tweet out earlier this morning that there was a report. Like I said, we're talking about players here, but it's draft.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers would love to be a Tennessee Titan. What's your thought on that?
Well, that just shows you the Super Bowl, what happens on Radio Row. He said he'd love to be a Tennessee Titan. I saw Chris Sims. I can't see him at his booth over there right now, but his booth is right across from us, which is right next to where I sit over there. So I saw that, and I saw how that kind of blew up on social media and Nashville, radio stations and people who do blogs or writing about that. So I asked Chris Sims, I said, so I heard you say you want to be the Titans. I said, what was some context there? Did you ask him why? And he said, oh, yeah, well, it's close to Atlanta. His family can get to the games there. He likes that part of the country. And that's it.
That's it. No Will Levis, Tajay Spears style play.
He's always been a big Titans fan. He wants to play for Will Levis. He likes Brian Callahan, the director. And that one word all of a sudden blows up. That's what happens on Radio. So if he did an interview with the Cleveland Brown with Cleveland radio, he'd probably say he'd love to play for the Browns. If he did a interview with the station out here in Las Vegas, he'd probably say he'd love to play for the Raiders. He loves the city. That's just the way it goes. And the reality is these guys have no say on where they're going, who's picking them, and but we'll be dealing with that kind of stuff from now until the draft.
For real. Real quick question before I let you go. What was the whole plan of going to the Pro Bowl versus the Senior Bowl? Because I know we talked to you last year around this time. You were in the airport going to Mobile.
Yeah.
So what was that whole thought process of
I usually do all. This is the first year I haven't done the Senior Bowl in probably 10, 15 years.
Okay.
And so I usually go from Senior Bowl to Pro Bowl to Super Bowl, and I'm gone 15 days. And so my wife doesn't like it, but she understands that's part of the job. And I would have done it this year if things didn't develop so long with the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Like there's still, the Brian Callahan stuff just happened recently in the process of putting together the coaching staff. So I felt like it was better for me to stay in Nashville the first part of the week and go to Pro Bowl at the end of the week. Mike Keith was down there with Titans Radio, so he had us covered. He did great work down there for for the website and Titans Radio, and there's plenty of time in my mind to catch up with the draft prospects. I mean, I think right now people are more interested in what's going on with the team, and the coaching staff, and Derrick Henry, potentially putting on that Titans logo for the first time and hearing what Peyton Manning has to say and Jamar Chase on Callahan. That was my thinking, is if I had to pick one of those two to come, I was going to pick the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. That's not bad. I mean,
I'll be at the Combine in a couple of weeks. I'll have my fill of draft process.
Yeah,
we got
true,
pro days
true.
coming up. We got in-house visits. We got a long runway to get to the draft.
That is true. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I will tell you that I want the Joe Olts, I want the Roma Duze, or Neighbors, or Brock Bowers. We can go on and on forever. But just to wrap things up over here, if Jim Wyatt's playing poker, blackjack, or roulette, what's your game in Vegas over here right now?
Oh man, I'm better off staying away from the tables, because I never had a lot of luck growing up doing it. Now that I work for the team, I think the gambling casino portion is frowned on from some, at least from a to a point. I like to, I'm kind of notorious for being a big saver and pinching pennies. So I don't know. I did some gambling in college, got bit from it, learned my lesson, and I just don't gamble anymore.
I should take your advice.
Yes, I used to do some gambling. I was in college. Me and my buddies would bet a lot of college games and pro games, and we thought we knew what we were doing, and then we lost a lot of money one weekend, and we had a service that we used to have a guy help us with picks. We lost even more money, and I think that scared me straight from that point on. I don't bet anymore.
Yeah, you can.
I maybe will play the slots a little bit, but Vegas doesn't have all these lights and big buildings because people are making a lot of money.
Yeah,
off of
no, you can win your mortgage payment, or you can lose it very, very, very fast.
Yeah.
Like Vinny always says, you could take your college kids' tuition right out of the bank. Forget about it over here.
Right.
But Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Returning guest. He was one of my first follows, and probably all yours first followers, along with the Tennessee Titans. Jim Wyatt, everybody. I appreciate you coming on. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to it till next time. Hope all you guys enjoyed it. Catch us live probably tomorrow or Friday on the red carpet of NFL Honors or Radio Row. We're going to be doing stuff all week. I appreciate all you guys for listening. And Sam, you know the deal. Send us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Talking Titans on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.